Good morning and welcome to the Factor booth at AIA 26. We're thrilled that you were able to stop by and hope we can generate some understanding and interest of what Factor does and why it might be a great solution for your architectural or engineering business. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. I have had a role in companies like yours and became a Factor client in 2025. I want to tell you that story because for me, it was an experience that affected the entire business. It wasn't just a project management or a finance issue. I've been working for small businesses, owner-managed businesses, creative service and design businesses my whole career. Some as a fractional CFO, COO, and some as an employed part of the company or employee of a company. The last 7 years, I've been at a small architectural design firm in Boston, and we were struggling with our software, our project management software, actually our enterprise software. I'm not here to teach you how to run your business, but I want to tell you my story because it might help you think about and assess how you're doing now, how is your software doing, and could you and should you be doing better? And I'm going to be very direct. I have no judgment. There are no bad guys or good guys. There's just a story about how we went from where we were to where we wanted to be. One of the things I want to emphasize in making a decision was having some kind of process, hopefully a thorough, objective process where you factor everything in. I'll say pun intended. And that's one thing that I would encourage everyone to do is like think about everything that possibly has to do with the expense and the output of, or the reward of your system. One of the things I did was I put down everything that users needed, different types of users, project managers, designers, architects, finance people, leadership management. I also made a long list of every single data that I wanted out, every report, every ratio, anything I wanted to see that I knew I had to pay attention to what I put in and what I got out. I could always weed out what I didn't need or the unimportant stuff, but I didn't want to miss anything. And what hit me was that our software that we thought about as project management and finance was really a software that was a foundation that the business worked on, almost like the brain, or I'll use the analogy, it's like the systems in a building. You've got heat and electricity and so forth. And with that, it makes the building functional and it gives it a chance to meet its need. Without it, it's just nothing. And so our whole business was affected by our software. I'm going to just say Deltek Ajera was the software we had. I started at the company in 2019. I think they installed it in 2017, and I'm going to give you my assessment of the years I was there and what we were going through. My assessment of Ajera was one, and some of this is on the company, didn't pick a good fit in terms of the software had way more than they needed. I think it was a name brand, and it had a huge user base, so it was kind of a how can we miss. The data transfer didn't go well. There were actually errors in the financial data that when I got there years later, there were control accounts that were wrong. And so over those years, their financial information was wrong and they didn't know it. They didn't train or learn or spend the time to learn the system well enough to master it. So there was very little user knowledge. And I say very little, it was a lot of guesswork. Needless to say, after a couple of years of that, where I have project managers, an accountant, a bookkeeper, and then employees that had to do data entry, it was very difficult. They had almost no ability to use the system, yet the company was running on the system. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of fear, a lot of errors. I had creative people who needed to use the product, but looked at it as it's a financial thing and I'm not in that part of the business. I don't need it, which we all know our project managers minimally need to know how the finances as well as the operation of running a project. So we were spending a lot of time trying to figure out how much do we try to learn? How much do we need help with? And we hired a consultant to help us troubleshoot and get the data straight. But then we kept them on and we started to outsource our bookkeeping to them. And we reduced our staff a little bit. This was around when COVID hit. And then we also hired them for a project management officer role. The key part of that is we needed all that help to run the system. We couldn't do it ourselves. And we were paying anywhere from $7,000 to $12,000 a month for this service. Their bookkeeping fees were consultant fees. So on top of all this frustration with not having a productive system and spending way too much time trying to accommodate it and spending way too much time troubleshooting errors and problems, and most of all, accommodating a staff that wanted nothing to do with it. They were discouraged with it. They didn't want to have to deal with it. They would have avoided it if they could, which is the exact opposite of what we want, right? We want our employees to be informed and equipped and enabled and committed to doing a great job and knowing how to use their tools. We had the opposite. It went on for a few years, and we finally decided, well, let's look around and see if we can do better. I shopped around for about a year, talked to a lot of folks, looked at a lot of systems that were better than what we had. At least they presented better than what we had. And then I came across Factor, who I hadn't heard much about. Went on the website. My first response was, this looks perfect. I found out they were relatively new, and I thought, oh, it's kind of new. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Made contact with them, and my first contact, my impression was they were expert at what they did. They were expert in about the industry and the business. They were personable. They were informative. They were pleasant, and I thought I really liked them. And a lot of what they told me, I actually remember walking away thinking, if some of this is exaggerated, I'm still thrilled. If this is 80% as good as I was hearing, it was still way better than what I had. As we got into the sales process, I got to meet and deal with a lot of the folks in Factor. It was always the same. Didn't matter who it was. Personable, responsive, expert at the product, expert at the business, expert at the operation of the business. And every time I got done, I kept thinking, this is more and more the product I think we need to go with. It looked like everything we wanted with nothing we didn't want. Data entry looked easy. Most of all, visual display was great. Everything was set up so that the graphs and the information started at a high level, easy to do drill downs. So knowing how your company was doing, how it did, how it's going to do, was very fast and easy, and you could get as much detail as you wanted very quickly by drilling into it. So we had a very expensive issue with our system, and as we continued to look at Factor, I had my project people, my architects, leadership, everyone looked at it, and everyone said it looks like by far our best choice. Some of our project managers thought it was a better choice than I thought at the beginning, because I was still thinking, this seems too good to be true. So we spent a couple of months at the end of 2024. We signed to become clients, made a plan for data entry and onboarding, and we went live January 1, which was a very fast turnaround. Things got off the ground. We had some startup speed bumps, mostly because we were late as the client getting them engaged and getting us set up. They were great. Factor is great at just being what you need to be. By the end of January, we had fairly good user knowledge. I would say rivaling the 8 years or 10 years that folks worked with Ajera. So this is in 1 month. And that had to do with, one, it's very intuitive. Two, the training videos are very, very effective. I would say they're the most effective tools in terms of, if you're in the application, you have a question before you do an email or a call or use the bot, you just look at the video, and they're all bookmarked where you can go to write what you need. You can watch it, and then you can move on because you'll know what you need to do. They were that good. C-Ray, I'm going to give him a plug here as the one who moderated these. Again, expert information delivered in a way that was very understandable, and yet he was still personable and easy to listen to. And that was just I would never expect that with training videos. All the people I told in my company, if they had an issue, start with the video. I would say well over half the time, it answered their question in minutes. So they didn't have to wait for callbacks and so forth. I may sound like I'm cheerleading here. I want to go back to what I started and said, I thought it might be too good to be true. This is my experience finding out that no, it actually was this good. And so this is just true. I'm not beating up Ajera, but it was way more than we needed. We were slow. We were expensive. Our service to our clients was not what it could be. And the amount of time we spent focused on value creation for our client was being dwarfed by the time we spent working for Ajera, trying to figure out how we could get it to do what we need. And, that was kind of upside down. We wanted a tool to help us do what we knew how to do. We didn't want to be a company that had to be subservient to the software and be stuck with rigidity and limits that we didn't need. We were spending with Ajera and with a consultant that was charging all this money, and again, no criticism of them personally, we were spending 20 calendar days from the first of the month to when we got our client billing completed. And that was a combination of our folks trying to get the data right to close the month, our consultants and bookkeepers that were spending all that money on working to get the data ready to bill, creating bills, lots of back and forth with emails and drafts. And literally it took till the 14th or the 15th to send them out. And sometimes another week to make corrections if we got feedback that there are errors. There were always errors. So at the end of January, we sat down around the 7th or the 8th, and we had bills done on how it works. Is when you looked at the data at the end of the month, the data you looked at was also what the bill was going to be, which is also the same screen and format that you would look at to see the status of the bill. So this was one screen that showed me all of this, whereas on the other system, it would have been multiple screens, multiple reports. Reports sometimes I had to output to Excel to make them legible. If you've got to see complicated data and lots of numbers, it makes it easy, and I'll even say enjoyable, because I love the colors. It's just great design. So we looked at all those hours we saved and started to do the math on how much are we paying people to do this? How many hours is it taking us? How many hours is this not going toward creating value for our clients? So again, we knew we were on the right track, and we save, I would say, probably $50,000 to $70,000 a year in fees. We saved hundreds of hours. And as a CFO, I saved 20 hours a month not having to output to Excel in format. These are huge increases in payoff, in reward. Our return on investment went from almost unacceptable to try to sustain a successful company to just what we wanted. So be thorough with your assessment, be objective, think about everything you need, think about everything everyone needs, think about user aptitude, what kind of users you're going to have. Does it look like they'll be able to get comfortable with it? If you do, I won't be surprised that you find out the return on investment is going to haunt you as I should do it. And if it's time to make a change, it may be the move you should make. Again, thanks for listening. I'm going to be around in the booth for the rest of the day. I'm happy to talk to anybody about that. Thank you.